Are gargoyles real? The answer is yes. Now, gargoyles, for those of you who don't know, are these creatures that are often carved into statues on churches, on skyscrapers. They're typically placed at the corners of the skyscrapers, often have a fearsome depiction, what people would call demonic in a lot of cases. For years, I had known they existed. I could feel their energy around, but I didn't uh, like the portrayal that they have in Gothic architecture and the mythology and all of that. I didn't think they were as fearsome as they're portrayed, and that sat with me for a while. When I was in so I was probably 25-ish when I started feeling gargoyles around and wanting to invite one or find a gargoyle energy to work with. And I started looking for statues because my process at the time was that I knew that if I could create an altar, an offering, I could use my energy and other techniques to invite these types of energies in and beings in. And I kept feeling one like poking around, not sure what it was. And so it took me years of looking to find a gargoyle statue because the statues in the stores would be too scary, too vicious looking, too aggressive, or they'd be like the complete opposite of that. They'd be like super cute and, more um, loving looking, I guess, more childlike in a sense. There was no in between that really captured the way I felt that their energy really exists as. So I went to Maine. After several years of looking, I went to Maine, and I was with my ex at the time, and we were traveling around, going to these different shops, going to just kind of all over the place. And we found like a spiritual shop that was just packed. I mean, you walked into this building and it was like, if you've ever been into a really packed Goodwill or Salvation Army type of store where things are, all the way to the ceiling, everything's covered, there's stuff everywhere type of thing. And I'm walking through the store and I can feel an energy pulling me, and I find this statue and I'm like, oh wow, that's actually perfect. That's what I'm looking for. And I debate on it because at the same time I'm kind of like I don't buy a lot of material stuff for myself. I don't really enjoy material items type of thing. So I typically try not to buy too much stuff, especially excess. And I was like, well, I don't know if I need it, but I've been looking for it for a while. And then I walked around a couple times and finally went back and picked it up and bought it and took it home. And it traveled back to my house. I was living up by Lake Erie at the time, and I had a little tiny place, less like 800 square feet maybe, but probably smaller than that. And it said on the front of it, "Banish all evil from this place." So I placed it facing the door to help protect the house and kind of made my offerings, did my thing. And one day I was walking around the house, and out of the corner of my eye, I see this creature walk from my bedroom through we had a tiny, tiny little hallway that connected all the rooms, through this tiny hallway into the living room and look at me. And it's standing about waist high on me, which is 3.5 to it's probably higher than waist height now that I think about it. It was probably standing about 3.5 to 4 feet tall. Four-legged muscles, just built and muscular. No hair. It's all kind of skin, like a really deep charcoal, like skin, shiny in some ways, and it has wings and it has this face and a kind of a beak on it, and it walks in and I can just feel this is the gargoyle. And so that was one of my first experiences. Like I saw him and just walked, kind of like, oh my God, watched him, and then he faded away and disappeared. And I started talking to him, started communicating with him. Found out who he was. He gave me a name. I call him Frederick, and he is from a sky dimension. He is from, when I say sky dimension, well, one of the times that I met with him, I had been doing, so I had known him I brought him into my life uh, almost 10 years before I started doing a lot of the galactic work that I do now. When I started doing the galactic work and learning how to open portals and wormholes and doing this type of stuff, he came back one day and was like, hey, I want to work with you some more, travel, show you where I'm from. And so I rode him astrally. He came into my space and he can shift. It's cool because he can shift size. So he can be like the size of a cat and he can be huge. Um, and so he comes into my space and waits for me. I lay down to meditate, waits for me to come out of my body. When I come out of my body, I grab onto his back astrally and he takes off to the sky, flies up to the sky, and a portal, like a bluish white portal, opens and it's parallel to the ground. So we go up through it, and when we go up through it, it's essentially like going in. Here's the portal, and here's the ground of his world too. The ground of his world is parallel to ours. It's another layer of Earth consciousness. We go up through it and climb through. In the distance, there's a disc that's there with some zetas that walk onto it, and that's when I realized that they could really shift dimensions because they kind of like waved at me, walked onto it, and the disc vibrated and went, and just a bright flash of light and was gone. Didn't like shoot anywhere, just shifted dimensions. But then he goes and shows me his dimension, his space. I work with him. We talk about protection. They help me. He brings me to like a tree spirit energy, a druidic energy, and I work with them off and on. And then I find out that he tells me the full story of how he found me, which is essentially he wanted to meet somebody too who was willing to work with him. So what he did is he came down to our world, and he can shapeshift. He's a shapeshifter. He came down to our world. He manifested into our world, reduced his density, but shifted into a human form with a suit, a tie, very professional looking, very like nobody's going to bother this person or bat an eye when they see this person. Walked down the street, walked into that store and looked at all the different things that were there and found that statue, and then fueled that statue with a tether of energy to him. So then and set the intention, and then he walked out of the store, walked back down the streets, kind of off to a side, and then faded away and went back energetically to his world. So he found me because he was looking for a human to work with. I found him because I was looking for a gargoyle to work with. So energetically, we just called each other into our lives. He's been a protector of mine for a long time. I've been told very cautiously that it's a very strong polarity of gargoyles. There are benevolent ones and malevolent ones, and it's not like the majority are benevolent or malevolent. It's just like there's a caution around it because there are so many shifts in the intentions of their kind that a lot of people who call these beings in can inadvertently call one that is not of the highest good. So when I talk to people about working with them, I always say be very, very careful. Make sure they're trusting, they're benevolent, they're all those sorts of things, because these are beings from other worlds with other intentions. But Frederick is one of the coolest beings I've met. I have a lot of stories and experiences to share with him, but we're at time almost. So what I'll say is, if you want to work with them, you can call them in. Just ask the universe to bring them to you, those types of beings, but make sure you set the intention. And then if you want to see the beings who are around you, remember that I do spirit art readings, divine counsel transmissions to help people with their spiritual journey. You can find those on my website, awakenwithwillow.com. Drop comments below, subscribe, like, let me know what you think, ask questions. Thank you for watching. Grateful for each and every one of you, and I love you all.